Today's topic is how to improve your relationships. A lot of you have been asking for this question that you want to improve your professional relationships, you want to improve your personal relationships, you want to improve relationship with your social networks and build more connections. So this is a video for you. But before we move forward with the video, make sure that you subscribe to this channel, hit that like button and also hit the bell icon so that you get to know the new fresh video every week that comes to you. Let's come to the topic now about how to improve your relationships. Well, the first thing that you need to do in the relationship to understand that how can you improve them is also about understanding what are your emotional triggers. See, in every relationship, for you to enhance your communication, because that's the foundation of any relationship, your communication with the other person builds your trust with that person. Now, to improve your conversations, to improve your communication, you first need to understand what are your emotional triggers, because let's be honest, we human beings are very much driven by how they feel. And all of us in an argument have a do not push button, right? So what are your emotional triggers? What ticks you off? Like let me give you an example. If you were raised by an abusive parent, that one parent was very hardworking and the other one was taking advantage of that parent, and in the house probably you suddenly see now that you're with your partner or you're with somebody, that person has left the table unattended or it's dirty, and you look at it and you suddenly get triggered that how dare you, how could you leave the table like that, are you expecting me to do all the work? Now that is a possibility that is coming from your childhood experience, that you saw your one of the parent was really hardworking and doing all the chores while other was just kind of making excuses, and now that got triggered in your space and you overreacted. Now this could be an example of your button that gets triggered every time you are in an argument. Now all of us have in our life have lost an argument or have lost our rationale in an argument. So noticing about your triggers is very, very critical. And for that, you need to reflect upon all your experiences that you have had or all your relationships. The things that worked very well for you and the things that did not work for you in all your relationships, including your personal, intimate relationships, with your friends, with your colleagues. What are your triggers that get triggered very often? And that reflection is very critical for you to move forward in enhancing your conversation, your communication in the next relationship that you get into. Know when to speak and where to speak. It's very, very important for you to understand that take your opportunity to speak. It's the way you speak and it's what you speak. We all have our incidences that we have gone through in our life, that all of us have lost it some or the other time. Our feelings have caught on and we have spoken some words, some really harsh, nasty words that we could not take back, and we really wish that only if I wish I wouldn't have spoken this. Now you see, you have got another opportunity. Like there is so many times it happens that you're very frustrated with your colleague or you're very frustrated with somebody, and you type a really harsh and strong email, and when you before hitting that send button, you just take a pause and you just reassess it, and you kind of reframe your words or rephrase something. You don't send that WhatsApp or you don't send that message. You just kind of pause, right? Then why can't you do it in your personal relationships? The one thing that I've always seen in my practice is people just take their personal relationships way too granted. You're carefully wording your email or a message when you send it to your professional relationship, because the punishment or the consequences of that wording would be way harsher than what you're expecting. The results may be really bad. But when it comes to our own personal relationships, we don't really care. We just say anything that we want to say. So take this opportunity to kind of pause. If you really want to work on that relationship, practice more pauses. You may get furious and your feelings are taking over. Take a pause and say, hey, you know what? Let's just wait. Go for a walk. Do a journal writing. Do something in that argument, or get out of that argument. Take a step back and just tell your partner that, you know what, we will revisit this after some time. I have seen a lot of couples getting through the arguments with this one single remedy or taking a pause. Now, of course, you can't do this alone. You have to be on the same page to do this, but making sure that you're pausing in that argument to get your rationale back so that you don't say or do things then later on when you regret about them. It would be a fantastic way to improve your conversations, your communication, and the quality of your relationship. Because I love what Tony Robbins always says, that he says that the quality of your life largely depends on the quality of your relationships. So to improve the quality of your relationships, it's not just, it doesn't happen all of a sudden. It's a work in progress and it's an everyday effort. The third point is to be very curious. You see, when you are in a courtship or when you meet a person and when that relationship is very new, you're very curious about the other person. You want to know everything about the person. You want to know what they're thinking. You want to know how they're feeling. You want to know what are their choices, what they like, what are their dislikes. It's a honeymoon period, right? We all talk about it, and every relationship has its own honeymoon period. And that time you're very conscious about your choices and your decisions and how you make the other person feel. You are, in that moment, in that honeymoon period, you're ready to do everything to win that person, to make sure that the person is comfortable. But when the honeymoon period goes away, like for some people it could be 7 days, for some people it could be 7 weeks, for some people it could be 7 months or 7 years for that matter. Now when the honeymoon period goes away, what happens is, it's not that the person is, it's a myth that when you hear people say that, oh, person is now showing the true colors. No, it's not that the person is not showing the true colors. It's you're more in your subconscious mind. You're more in your conscious mind. When you are conscious in that honeymoon period, you are at your best behavior. So is the other person. But when the honeymoon period is weaning off, you go into your subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind then brings out your behavior patterns, your habits, those were always there. And now you start, the same habits that you ignored first, now they start irking you. The same conversations that probably you were earlier curious about, now you start getting irritated with. You remember that you're not irritated with the person. You're probably irked or irritated by that behavior, that habit, that trait. It's very critical to have a distinction between these two. Most often what happens is, when you get irritated with a person, you kind of reject the entire person. Well, that's not happening, because this is the same person whom you loved once. So there's definitely those qualities in that person that you loved. But now those qualities you are ignoring, and you're probably focusing on what are the weaknesses or what are the certain things that you don't like in them. And I'm not saying that you just can't, avoid not noticing them. It's natural to, notice the other things also in the person once the, honeymoon period is getting over. But in that case, it's even more important that you become very conscious about being curious in this relationship, to identify, to see, finding things to do together. So that, in this argument, that whatever has happened, you don't repeat it again. You reflect upon it and you move on, and you understand that, okay, this is a thing that I need to know about this person when it comes next. So it's very critical for you to be ever curious about the person who's next to you. And it's not just in your personal relationships. It's also about your professional relationships. Remember, people may forget you, but people will never forget how you make them feel. So those little things, if you make an effort to understand about the person, you will be way ahead in your game of communications and conversations in that relationship. Fourth, become the master in empathy and compassion. See, understand here, everybody comes from some or the other baggage in their life, right? Now, when somebody is talking to you, and if your judgment comes up, or if you're a bad listener, you're not able to understand what's happening in their space. The early lessons that we learned in our childhood, that we were told to put ourselves into the other person's shoes. But in an argument, you lose that sight. You can't really somehow associate with that whole point of view, because the same point of view is now coming in the way of your point of view, right? So how about distancing yourself, building that objectivity about this argument, and being more compassionate and empathize with the person. Nobody likes to be shut down. Nobody likes to be told to keep quiet. So if you can become a active listener, I'm not saying agree with everything that the person is saying, but how about just being a good listener and empathize, okay, what must be the reason for this person to have this point of view? What they may have gone through in their life that is, created this kind of point of view in their life. Same goes with you. Be more compassionate and empathize with your own self. Why do you have a certain point of view? Which part of your life has brought in this kind of a point of view to you? What has happened in your past that is making you behave or say things like this? If you become more empathetic and compassionate about the whole you and the person opposite to you, it will really, really help you to design your life or your relationship in a better way. Fifth is reading between the lines. Reading between the lines means that, when you are in an argument with a stranger, probably, in a traffic or maybe something happened and you got into an argument, it's generally a two-dimensional conversation where what happens is either the person gets really angry and kind of burst out in flames, or that person will hurl the insult and just get along with their life. But it doesn't happen the same way with your long relationships. Like long-standing relationships are generally different, where people come up with their resentment, their baggages, their own experiences. And in this case, what happens is when you get into an argument, there is a lot goes on in that argument. There's a lot riding in that argument. So what about identifying what's happening in this person's life? What may have happened that has brought this person in this space? Reading between the lines, especially in your personal relationships, can really, really build the strong foundation of your relationship. Sixth, stop expecting people to understand you without you saying it. A lot of times we expect a lot from other people. I remember this incident that had happened with my son, and he was very hurt that his friends did not understand him. And he came back, he was really sad about it. And, generally, my son is very quiet kind of person. He doesn't generally express too much. He just talks to me and his father, and, it's like that. He's not a very, person who's talking to every person what's happening inside his space, right? So one day he came home when he was younger and he said, my friends don't understand me and I'm really hurt. I made him sit down and I asked him this question: did you tell your friends that what you really wanted? He said, no. How you understand? How Papa understands? How can my friends don't understand what I really want? If they truly love me, they will understand me. I just smiled and I said that, parents have the gift. Because we conceived you, you were born to us, and we had to make an extra effort to build this relationship, to understand what exactly is happening in your space. But your friends will not. They come from their own space and they would wonder that, why should we invest in somebody? Why should they think about what do you want? I said, that's a huge pressure on someone. You have to be very open to people, to share with them what do you want and what do you not want. It's important. You share your truth with love and compassion that this is what I like, this is what I don't. Then you leave it to the person after they know about it. Then what they are responding to, how they are responding. Then you can think from the point of view of, okay, in spite of me sharing what are my likes and dislikes, what do I want and what I don't want, if this person is behaving this way, then you need to see what needs to be done next. Please stop expecting people to understand you because they know you for a longer period of time. And it applies to all sorts of relationships. And 7, sometimes it's actually really wonderful to anticipate in advance what the other person may like. Some of your people, your friends, your family members, your romantic relationships, your colleagues. Sometimes we just observe people and we know what they like. Why not anticipate what they need in their life and provide them? That will actually help you to build a very strong foundation in this relationship. Yes, it takes a lot of efforts, I'm not saying, but so does everything. You want to build your networks, you want to build your connections, you want to build a lot of love in your life and support in your life. And these are the 7 steps that, if you take one at least at a time and you really work on this. The first one is very, very critical. It's inescapable that you must know your emotional triggers and what ticks you off and start working on them, which is inescapable. Apart from that, the rest of the 6, let me know in the comment section which one are you going to try and use and see, and come back and tell me which one worked the best in which relationship of yours. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button if you liked it, and share this video if you really care about your relationships.